Hello everybody, this is gonna be our video of doing the render and then making that .obj. So just like the two final submission pieces, so the rendering JPEG and then the .obj. Really quick, those that did do Procreate, for your pumpkin, you're just gonna hit that share option, hit the OBJ. I ended up emailing it to myself because it makes a folder, a zip folder. Let me change my screen. It made a zip folder that has the OBJ, and then it also has the three maps that you could have been working on. So it'll have the color, the metallic, and the roughness. You don't really have to do anything with those because the .obj will contain everything. So to bring it back in Blender to do the render, let me actually hide my, this is my non-Procreate pumpkin. Those that did not do Procreate, you do not have to do this step. So to bring your pumpkin back in, you're just gonna do import .obj, find your folder, and then grab that .obj, and it should bring it back in. Beautiful. It's very dark. It's fine. Okay. So, really quick, I know I covered this in the Procreate video, but for those that textured the pumpkin in Blender, to create that .obj part of your canvas submission, what you're going to do is select your pumpkin. You're going to go up to pumpkin and everything involved. So if you have like your legs separate, hold down shift and click on everything. So grab like pumpkin, hold down shift, grab leg, pedestal, and then you're going to do file, export, wavefront.obj. You want to make sure you're limiting to selection only. If you could, please, if you can, put your name for your pumpkin. And then please uncheck apply modifiers because I don't want my computer to crash from all these pumpkins. So uncheck apply modifiers, and then you can hit export OBJ. It's going to make the two files. It's going to make a .mtl and a .obj. Just submit that .obj, and that'll give me your model so that I can make that like group render session. Okay, what am I doing? So now to do an actual render, so there's two actual rendering things in Blender. There's Eevee and cycles. Usually I teach cycles because it's more intelligent. It like reads light a lot better. It like follows the light rays, reflections, and everything. But because we just have a simple toonish figurine, we're just going to use Eevee because it will be easier on everyone's computers. So just to keep it accessible, we're just going to use Eevee. So first thing we need to do is set up a camera for our render. We already have one in our scene, so I'm just going to click on that camera in my outliner, and you can see now if I zoom out, it's highlighted. We have to position it. So to see what the camera is seeing, there's this little camera button on the right side of your viewport. So if you click on that, we'll see what our camera is seeing. So it's seeing this like overhead view of our pumpkin. I kind of want to just like straight on see my pumpkin. So to move it, it's not just like the same as moving around in the viewport. You kind of have to imagine it that you are using your basic transformations to move it around. So like G, you grab it to move it around, or you can hit R to rotate it to like tilt the view. So if I hit G and move my mouse, you can see it's kind of like moving it around. I can hit G, or sorry, don't know my letters. You can hit R for rotate, and then hit Z to kind of be just like looking left and right with it. So you're gonna have to do these like series of movements. You can also move it outside of this view. I just prefer moving it within it so I can see what it's seeing. But you can see outside of the view, I can also move the camera and try to like position it. So whichever method you prefer, either in the viewport or in the camera preview. So G, if you want to zoom in and or out, you just click in the middle mouse. So instead of scrolling, hit G and then click the middle mouse. And then if I move my mouse up or down, it scrolls in or out. So I'm just going to leave it here-ish for now because I actually want to change the dimensions of my camera viewport, because right now it's like landscape view and I asked for square view. So first we have to go to our render settings. So the two tabs you're going to be in are render properties and what is this one called? Output properties. This first one that looks like a little back of a Nikon, our Nikon icon, this is where you can switch the render engines. So if you do want to go super intense with the lighting and everything, you could go in cycles, but we're just going to go in Eevee because this one gives us more like real-time rendering. And then in output properties, we can say like the size, the resolution of our render. So we're gonna do 1080 by 1080. So I'm just gonna change my X to 1080. And then I'm just gonna focus it in a little bit more on my pumpkin. So I hit G to grab it, clicked in middle mouse, and then I'm just moving my mouse forward. Try to get a nice zoomed in version of your pumpkin. Don't do like a super far away one. Sometimes when I don't specify, I get those. How's that? I want to look a little bit more up at him. So I'm going to hit rotate around the y-axis and I can make it look more up. There, that's nice. So here's my, like, what my render camera is going to, like, see. Is there anything else we have to set? I think we're good. So next is we have to set up our lighting. I actually have the just like shading viewport, the like preview, material preview shading on. If I click that last, the final circle, this is the render lighting that I currently have. So it's pretty dark. We're just gonna pop in like basic 3-point lighting setup for our pumpkin. So if I just rotate out of that, we should have a light in our scene already. I'm just using what we currently have. If you went and deleted those, these will both be under Shift A. So Shift A, you have access to lights, and then you also have access to a camera if you need to put in a new one. So I'm gonna kind of like hit G and move this. I think I'll do it like right there. For our lights, we do have a couple of settings that you might want to play with. That's going to be under that green light bulb icon, Object Data Properties. So if you click on that, you can change the color if you want to change the color of it. But there's also power And then radius are the main things I usually play with the point lights. There are different kinds of lights, but we're just going to use point lights. So if you want to do a color, you can choose a color. Power is going to say like how strong of a light it is. So if I just have like 200, you can see it's pretty dark. If I put in like a bajillion, it's super washed out and bright. So we want to make sure it's bright enough without washing it out. Look at these. This is our issues because of my UV unwrap. What was it at? That was like nice. That's probably fine. The radius kind of determines how intense our shadows are. I don't know if we'll be able to see. Oh, you can kind of see on his little ridge shadow. The smaller the radius, the more defined. I said that so intensely. The more defined the shadow edge is, the larger it is. You can see it like starts blurring it out a bit. Sorry, getting a phone call. Okay. So I'm gonna have, I mean, that's probably fine. Oh, this'll, I'll probably change them a bit once I pop in another light because I want to pop in 2 more lights. But first things first is I want to add a little backdrop because right now if I render it, he'll just be floating in space. So I'm just gonna really quick make a little like display thing for him. And I'm literally just gonna make a cube. So I'm gonna do Shift A, Mesh, Cube, and then I'm just gonna hit S to scale it up. Actually, I'm gonna scale it up a lot. S, hit G, constrain it to Z to move it up so it looks like he's like resting right on it. And then if I hit Tab to go into edit mode, I can delete that front face and I can actually see what I'm doing. So now he's in a little display box. I might want to end up scaling it up more, but we'll leave it like this for now. If you want to add a color to it, you can just quickly do that. Grab this globe, this red globe. It should say material properties. This is like the usual way you put materials on. We're just gonna click that, hit plus new, and then by base color, you could just pick a color if you would like one. I'm not gonna look at anything else in this, so I don't want to this is where you can do more material things, but we're just gonna choose a color. Beautiful. And now you can see the shadow a bit more. So if I go back to the radius, we should be able to see like super defined shadow versus like swoosh shadow. Okay, so we have our one light in, but I'm gonna pop in a couple more just so that we can fully light him up. So I'm just gonna hit Shift D to duplicate that current light. I'm gonna have one light. I want to have one light be the dominant light source, but I also want to make sure like the darkest parts of him still have some light getting to him. So I have my dominant lights kind of like above on one side of the camera. I'm gonna have the secondary light kind of on the opposite side of the camera, more down low to get those shadows. Right now it is 2 competing lights. You see I have 2 sets of shadows. I don't want that, so I'm actually gonna weaken the power a bit of the one and then increase that radius just so that shadow goes away. How's that looking? Happy little friend. And then the very last light I'm gonna put in is just gonna help define it a bit more. I'm gonna put it behind him. So let me just do Shift D again. And I'm just gonna move it. So I'm just hitting G to move him around, like behind him. Excuse me, cube, you're in my way. Okay. We'll see how this ends up looking. That's like too close to him. We'll back it up. We'll do a test render. Okay, so I have 3 lights. I have one in the front on the side. This one's my strongest light. It's casting a shadow. I have the secondary light that's on the same side of the pumpkin, but like more bottom left, whereas the other one's top right. It's weaker in power, bigger radius so it doesn't cast a shadow, and then I'm gonna have this backlight just to like help light them up even more. I have my camera in position. I have this little backdrop place so it actually like has them sitting on something. And now we'll do our actual render. So I think, is that literally it? Okay, I think we're fine. So we're just gonna hit F12. If you don't have the function keys, oh my god, function keys on your keyboard, you're gonna do render image. So I have objects in my scene that are hidden. So that's what's happening right now. It's pretty exciting, honestly. It has little star effects on them. So I have my Boolean and my like other pumpkin are hidden in the viewport, but they're not hidden in the render. So that's what I have to fix on mine. So to do that, let me just exit out of that. To do that, where it has the eyeballs closed, you're just also gonna hit the camera. So I'm just gonna hit the camera next to all of those closed eyeballs. And it should close it or hide it in our render as well. So now if I hit F12 or do render image, it should just have our pumpkin. So you can continue tweaking lighting depending on how that is. I think this is just like how I did the material, but it's like dark void where his feet are. That I'd probably want to try to light up more, but once you are satisfied with it, you're just going to do image, save as, and then you could just save that as a JPEG, and that'll be your render submission. So for that, once you create that JPEG, again, this is kind of similar to those that did do the texture painting in Blender. You have to save this before you quit out of Blender. If you like have everything set up, like do your render, and then you quit out without saving your image, when you come back in, you have to redo your render, which isn't the worst case scenario since we're using Eevee, but if you do a cycles render and you have a big scene, sometimes it takes like 2 hours to do those, so then it's kind of bad. So for us, it's kind of fun, but with that JPEG then that you save, please post it on your Discord channel, and then also submit that on Canvas as well. I think that is all. I'm excited to see everybody's pumpkins.